would say that I don't actually have the world's most greatest amount of discipline, but what I have is a lot of systems. I'm unmotivated some days, I'm undisciplined some days, but the systems that I have kept in place, everything from the elimination of distractions to public accountability, they just all drive my actions and behaviors, and they make the success almost automatic. People who are most successful are the people who are able to remove the temptations and distractions, because success really does come through subtraction. The negatives drag us down so much more than the positives can lift us up.
Welcome to the Courageous Men Podcast, where we help Christian men follow God faithfully, love their families well, and build a legacy that lasts. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Today on the Courageous Men Podcast, we're joined by a man who has shaped thousands of people's lives and leadership in a profound way, Craig Ballantyne. Craig is known as the world's most disciplined man. I appreciate just obviously his level of discipline. It challenges me in big ways, but it isn't about pressure or performance. It's about peace and purpose and protecting what matters most. You're going to learn that today from Craig Ballantyne. Craig, people know you as one of the most disciplined men on the planet. You've built multiple seven-figure businesses, you've coached thousands of leaders, and you live with a level of structure most men can't imagine. But one thing I value a lot about your approach to discipline is that it creates peace, right? Not pressure. And helps men to honor the Lord or their families and pursue excellence, without losing themselves. But maybe before we dive right in, where did that come from? Where did the term, the most disciplined man come from? And what does that make you think or feel, when you hear that?
That's a great question. A couple of great questions. And so how does it make me feel? I definitely want to preface it by saying, I don't want to insult, the warriors, special forces, all those types of people where there's a level of discipline greater than, just a civilian like me. What it came from was a friend of mine, probably about 15 years ago. He noticed that I owned a few businesses, and he noticed that I was putting out a lot of content even back then on YouTube and email marketing and that sort of stuff. And he's like, "You must be the most productive person I know." Therefore, he made the leap of logic that you are the most disciplined person I know, and you must be the most disciplined person in the world. And so that's how it came about, and it's kind of a joking little moniker. And a lot of people, because they don't have as much discipline as me, they kind of stuck with it. But I would say that I don't actually have the world's most greatest amount of discipline, even as a civilian. There's a lot of single moms out there with a lot more discipline than I have. But what I have is a lot of systems, Whitney, and I'm unmotivated some days, I'm undisciplined some days, but the systems that I have kept in place, everything from the elimination of distractions to public accountability around certain things that I do, and the commitment to my family and the commitment to my goals and the commitment to the people that work with me and that we work with, then they just all drive my actions and behaviors, and they make the success almost automatic, or at least they make the actions that move me towards success almost automatic, because the feeling of disappointing people to me is much greater than the challenge of following through.
Yeah, love that. Well, I want to get into some of those systems. I know any man listening is thinking, man, I need some of that in my life, but it can seem overwhelming at the same time. But we're going to get there. I know you work with just high performers, right, every day. What do you believe, though, is like a number one reason men just struggle to stay consistent?
Oh man, I mean, so I was just thinking about this the other day. So I'm from Canada, everybody, and I visit America a lot. And people give Americans a hard time, right? They say, oh, it's like 40% of Americans are obese. But if you go to America, most of the people listening live in America. As an outsider going to America, I go to America and I go, I can't believe 100% of the population in America isn't obese. I often stay at this, the Westin Hotel by LAX airport, and you look out, it's a horrible area, but you look out the window and it's Papa John's and then some other billboard and another billboard. And then the fourth billboard is lap band surgery. And then it's all these food things. And then you turn on television in America and you're like, man, these people creating this marketing, I want to go to Papa John's right now and stuff my face with, cheese wrapped inside cheese, inside the crust, inside more cheese, pizza. Like, it's unbelievable, right? And so what I've found is that the people who are most successful are the people who are able to remove the temptations and distractions, because success really does come through subtraction. We want to live a virtuous life, removing yourself from temptation, right? Deliver me from evil and remove me from temptation is one of the biggest things that people need to add into their lives, because it's not about adding more stuff in there, more rituals and routines. It's about getting rid of the anchor that's holding you down. And, I always use this little shtick that people tend to get. Imagine Whitney and I were lined up at the start of the Boston Marathon. Each of us were 3-hour marathon runners. And some person came up to me and said, "Hey, we got the world's fastest shoes. The guy who's running the 2-hour marathon, this is what he uses. We're going to give them to you for free. You can wear them for this marathon." Well, great. I might go from a 3-hour marathon to a 2-hour 59 marathon. But then Whitney's like, "Oh man, what are they going to give me? This is exciting." And they come over and they give Whitney a 53-pound kettlebell. And they say, "You got to wear this in this backpack for the entire race." Well, what's that going to do to Whitney's time? It's not going to take him from 3 hours to 3 hours in a minute. It's going to take him to 6 hours, and you're probably not even going to finish the race. And what that is, the metaphor is that the negatives drag us down so much more than the positives can lift us up. So that's very important to look for in our daily routines. And this thing, the phone, that thing just drags so many people down, because, I go on there from time to time thinking, okay, I got to go and send a person a message on Instagram. And the next thing you know, I'm 15 minutes on Instagram and I didn't send the person a message. And I get off and go, why did I go on there in the first place? Oh, yeah, I needed to send Whitney a message. And so that's the temptation around food. I think pro sports are a big waste of time. And I think that's a big temptation in people's lives. And, you just go down the rabbit hole of all the temptations. And so when we look at the high performers, we look at people who have been able to free themselves of the ball and chain that leaves most people stuck in life.
I love hearing, just like thinking through it about it creating freedom, right? And
Mhm.
not, it doesn't have to create pressure. And I feel like it's what a lot of men feel like, oh, having to put those things in place, these systems, right? It's going to
Yeah.
be too much pressure. It's not going to allow me to do what I want to do. And so maybe speak to how discipline should create that freedom and not pressure. Maybe what separates that healthy discipline from, the kind that say breaks a man down.
Well, yeah, it's a great question. And so I reverse engineer it and I reverse engineer it based on what do I really want in life? Because I get it. There's a lot of temptation, and I wouldn't say it's like evil temptation, right? But there's temptation. Recently I live in Vancouver, and the Toronto Blue Jays were in the World Series, and everybody's talking about it, right? Like my mom's watching baseball. She's 85, doesn't watch anything, right? But she's, cheering on the Blue Jays and stuff. And so there's all this temptation to get caught up in it. But to me, whoever wins the games, I don't care. I didn't watch any of it. And this is coming from a guy who used to watch a ton of sports all the time. Oh, now I got to watch. Now I got to put 3 hours into this baseball game. Well, I got a million other things to do in my life, and it goes on and on and on. Now I got to have a conversation with the guy at the gym about it. And it's like, well, I just remove myself from that, I don't have the pressure of keeping up with that. And so again, I reverse engineer. What really mattered to me is my 3 kids, and we were just talking about, my kids are sick right now and that sort of stuff. They're a lot of work, and they're the greatest thing in the world, but they're the most important thing to me. And so therefore I can run it through a filter, is like, this opportunity, this entertainment, this thing, this, conversation, is this, if I run it through my filter of here's what really matters to me is my family and my future and my vision for them, is it going to move me and my family further towards our goals, or is it going to, leave us kind of spinning our wheels, or worse, is it going to make, relationship with anybody in my family negative? And if it's not moving, if it's not a heck yes, as the cliche goes, then it's a heck no. And so I think that, again, you can remove a lot of the outside pressure of the world from you by just being able to say no to a lot of things that are frivolous. And listen, don't get me wrong. I think the people that play professional sports are incredible. What they do is incredible. I think the people that, are in movies, hey, listen, you do great work, music, all that sort of stuff, but you got to draw the line somewhere, right? I can't watch every pro sport and every game, and I can't watch every movie. We all draw the line somewhere. And I've just decided as the years have gone by and I've gotten older, I've decided to draw the lines closer and closer and closer to me. And in a way that has left me freer than ever before. In fact, I used to be a news junkie too, up until about the summer of 2024. And, just a lot of the news stuff, everybody's got the stuff they agree with and everybody's got the stuff they don't agree with. And the specifics don't matter, but the stuff that I wasn't agreeing with was making me angry in a way that it came out in the look on my face at the dinner table, losing my temper faster with my dog than normally, like because you spend all day angry at the world about something. And I just decided like this, I've had enough, right? Like none of this stuff really matters. I don't need to know who's killing who halfway around the world. It's unfortunate, like certainly it's not a laughing matter, but I cannot do a single thing about that. And so why do I need to know and why do I need to watch footage of drone killing or that people upload into all these Twitter channels? I don't, and so I cut it off, and so that just removes so much pressure on me. My life is much better, and I'm more ignorant than I ever been in my entire life around global affairs. And for me, it doesn't matter. It just does not matter. My business doesn't rely on it. My family life doesn't rely on it. There's nothing that, you know, I don't need to know the price of tea in China. So I'm not interested in it. And again, that removes so many external forms of pressure that you have to keep up with all these things, and then it becomes distractions, and then all of a sudden your time's gone. So no, I've got my time is dedicated to what really matters. So in order to be free, you need to reverse engineer and know what really matters. There's a lot of people out there with cliches, start with why and all that sort of stuff. And it's the truth. When you know what really matters, you can make decisions around what to do because the things that matter in life are clear. And you can say no to a whole lot more stuff. So I think that has been really, really helpful to me as I've aged. And I've done a lot of things wrong in that respect, when I was younger, trying to keep up with a million things and working 12-hour days. And, you eventually just find that there's only a few key things that make a difference.
Yeah. And that's, I don't want to get into some of those systems as well. I love the thought of just eliminating, right, as much as possible. I think probably about a year ago, it's almost every morning I had my like YouTube notifications turned on my phone. And so every morning I would see all the headlines on these specific channels, all news related, just like you. I'm like, oh my goodness, I really want to watch that. Well, there
I
just went
know.
30 minutes, right? Of my morning before I realized it. And finally my wife was like, you got to get rid of those notifications. And finally I listened to her. It was good encouragement from her to do that. But so true. Those you see that first thing in the morning, and man, it can just pivot your attitude, your thinking, right? That's so important for the rest of the day, and especially the morning time, which I know is crucially important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's a good phrase that everybody can kind of take away. It's a little writer downer, and it's your mind is like a garden, plant good things.
Mm.
And so if you wake up in the morning and you allow negativity into it, you may be a positive person, but that stuff eats away at you. And if you're not a super positive person, that stuff can really derail your day. So we need to stay out of the negativity as long as we possibly can. And again, this is, similar to the story I told about going to America. And, when you go to America, you've got 100 different restaurant options, but you got 100 different, voice options, every cable TV and talk radio. And now everybody and their dog has a podcast and this, that, and the other thing. And you can really get lost in this stuff. And my friend Joe Polish has a great phrase: use social media, but don't let social media be used on you. And I think that's really, really important. Now, I use as a producer of content and a business owner, I use social media. It is a tool for me, but it is not a place where I allow the tool to be used on me in anymore. But I have in the past, and those things are set up to reward the most extreme stuff that then makes you angry and causes you to interact with it. And that's how it, and then it's a cycle. So the more interaction on a piece of content, the more it's going to get fed to you, and you're going to go and interact with it, which means you're going to get fed more of that stuff. And so you have to stay out of that doom loop by not engaging and in fact blocking as much of that stuff. I was actually on a call with somebody the other day, and he had a really good reframe on it. He goes, he was an older guy. He's like maybe 5, 10 years older than, actually he was in his 60s. So he's over 10 years older than me. He goes, that Instagram, because he was like kind of new to it. He goes, that Instagram, man, that's the greatest thing out there. That's like the biggest time saver because he knew, he goes, excuse my crude language, but he said, yeah, you can have boobs and butts on your Instagram, but he said, you can curate it so it's the greatest time saver because it's true because you can go on there and find somebody really intelligent breaking down what you'd take an hour to watch on YouTube. They can get it down to a minute on Instagram and you can learn so much. And I'm like, man, that is a really great reframe, but it's
Yeah.
only if you curate it the right way.
Interesting. Yeah, that's incredible. Use it to benefit you, right? Don't let it use you. Speaking about some of these systems, I want to dive into a few of them. And when a man feels, for instance, feels overwhelmed, right? And I feel like a lot of us do, but whether it's the family and the business and the responsibilities, what's maybe the first system he should put in place to regain that peace and clarity?
Right. So everything comes down to time, right? You feel under the gun. Why do you feel under the gun? Because you have so many things to do and so little time to do it, or a deadline is coming up and they're all time related. So the systems we want to use are clawing back your time. Some people use the phrase buy back your time, but there's a lot of free ways you can get back your time. And the elimination is one thing. So one of our systems is automate, delegate, and eliminate. And we generally work with entrepreneurs who use the delegate part to take the workload off their plate and delegate it to other people. Like you and I are doing this show, and then you will delegate the editing, the uploading, all of the artwork and the other great stuff behind it. You won't do that because that's not your zone of genius or area of expertise. And so somebody else is much better at that, and we will then assign them that task. They've been trained in it and they can go and do the work. Now we're multiplying our efforts. So if we look to automate through all the great automation tools today, whether it's paying, even using your banks and um, automation tools to pay cards on time, to pay bills on time, you don't have to go and now walk down to the bank like my mother may have used to have to do and pay a bill in there. No, you can set it up so bills are paid automatically, and you can use the AI tools that are out there to do a lot of automations to make things fairly easy. So you're buying back your time or clawing back your time or getting back your time for free, and then you delegate. You get stuff off your plate. If you are if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a financial position to do so, you shouldn't be cutting your lawn. You shouldn't be doing a lot of chores around your house because you were put here on this earth to build an epic business, not to go out and cut your lawn. All right, unless you get great peace out of it, by all means. But if you don't, it's somebody else. It's the kid down the road. He's doing it for 25 bucks an hour. Great. That's his job. Away you go. Delegate that to somebody else. I even give people a hard time. I say, like, if you're driving around and getting stuck in traffic in this day and age when you can live like a billionaire, right? In the 1990s, Michael Bloomberg would have somebody drive him around the city of New York. Well, now you can have somebody drive you around any city in America. It's called Uber. And you can sit in the back and you can check emails on your phone. You can do phone calls. You can, have a notepad and like write notes and think about things, solve your problems. And I don't drive anywhere. My wife has a car, but I don't, and I drive the kids around sometimes. But other than that, I don't drive anywhere because I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I don't want to be looking for parking, but I can leverage my time and therefore remove some of the pressure. So automate, delegate, and then eliminate, which we have covered, almost to the point of too much, is that you just you're saying yes to too many things, both personally and professionally. You need to cut back. And then that's a way that you're going to be able to free up some of your time. And then even within your days, the concept of batching activities and blocking open time for really mentally intense activities is very important. So if you have a day full of meetings, but you have a meeting at 8, and then you have a meeting at 10, and then you have a meeting at 1, and you have a meeting at 3, and each one of those meetings is 30 to 45 minutes, well, now you have all this time in between, and it's not going to be used effectively. So especially if you're doing this stuff virtually, you should have a meeting at 8 to 8:45, 10-minute break, another meeting, 10-minute break, another meeting, and then now you got all your meetings done compressed in a time there with enough time to give you a little rest in between and take some action steps. And then now, instead of having an 8 hour day full of meetings, you really had a 4 hour period of meetings. And now you have a productive 4 hours. Because what I have found over the years for myself, and I teach all of our clients, is that I would much rather you have a 3 hour block working on a big project than 1 hour block 4 days in a week. So I know the math doesn't even sound like it's right, but I'd rather have one single day where you have 3 hours straight dedicated to a high mental taxing activity, such as even doing your taxes, right? Everybody does their taxes. And if you try and do your taxes half an hour here, half an hour there, an hour here, you're much better off doing it all in one block because there's a lot of death by a thousand cuts in people's times and their days because again they're bouncing from one thing to another thing and there's a 15-minute block in between and most people are not wise enough to use those slivers of time. A very intelligent person, a well prepared person can use those slivers of time productively, but most people will give that time away to scrolling on their phone or gossiping or something
I
like
don't have
that, so
time
they
to start
really
another project, so I'll just get stuck
yeah.
on some reels, watching some
E-
reels.
Exactly, exactly. But it's you know, because I come from the workout world. My original business was in the fitness space, and I would show people how to get workouts done in 10 to 15 minutes because when I said that to people, they're like, "Oh, you can't get a workout done in 10 or 15 minutes." I could crush anybody in 10 to 15 minutes with the right sequence of exercises. But most people think, "Oh, I don't have an hour to work on something. I don't have an hour to do a workout. I don't have an hour to do something." Well, why? What's so magical about an hour? Like you can have a good meeting with somebody in 10 minutes. You don't need an hour meeting with people. So most of the things that people are doing, they're scheduling too much time for it. And if you compress it, you will get and you're more prepared for it, you will get the same or better results than you would in longer periods of time. So I don't know why I was wired this way, but I'm just always looking at ways to be more efficient with my time and that way I have a little bit more time for myself and for my family and also I can get more things done. And it's kind of a win-win-win all the way around.
What are maybe one or two of the biggest pushbacks you get from entrepreneurs who say, "Hey, Craig, I just don't have time for that." I mean, you can see they're living in chaos, but obviously you're coaching them to bring some order into their life. But what's a couple of things where they get the biggest wins, but maybe you've received the most pushback?
Well, I think some of the things are around the meeting times. So a lot of people are addicted to meetings. They think that they have to have a lot of meetings. They worry about what their team might think if meetings are cut back, if they're not as frequent, if they're shorter. But most of the people that when they find out the meeting is shorter, they're much happier. And so pushing back around that has been a big one. But again, we teach some very contrarian things. We teach meeting-free Mondays. So I don't know why everybody thinks you have to have all the meetings on Monday. Like it's just one day of the week, it doesn't, but that's how you start the week. Well, you could have had the meeting on Friday and then everybody just start working on Monday, or you could have the meeting on Tuesday. It's not like they're going to show up on Monday and go, I don't have anything to do. Everybody's going to have tons of stuff to do. So we've actually, we try and have meeting free Mondays because most people otherwise like everybody's just going to be in this Sunday mood where it's like, oh man, tomorrow I got all these crazy meetings. It's like, why ruin people's weekends, including your own, when you could just move the meetings to a different day? So we get a little pushback on that, but then also less frequent meetings, shorter meetings, and making sure, here's a big one, especially for an entrepreneur, only the people who need to be in the meeting should be in the meeting. And
Mm.
the next time, if you do run a business, the next time you're in a meeting, look around at everybody and think about how much you're paying them per hour to be in the meeting, the hour-long meeting, and then double it because it's not the meeting doesn't isn't just from 9 to 10. At 8:30, if they start at 8:30, they're thinking about the 9 o'clock meeting. At 8:45, they're shutting down what they're doing to get ready for the 9 o'clock meeting. So now you got a half an hour on both sides. So if you're paying somebody $75 an hour in your business, right, and they're like really important, you're paying them $150 to be in that meeting. Now, if you got three people in there, they're $150 per meeting. Yeah, that's a $500 meeting and not including your own time. And it's like, did you really need to pay $500 for that time? Could have been a 5 minute Loom video that you sent out to everybody. Could have been a 20-minute meeting. What could it have been? And so we see that pushback there. We got a lot of pushback around, people think that they're going to be able to do stuff at night, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work. After the kids go to bed, I'm gonna work for a couple hours. It's never going to happen. There's so many distractions. You've got Netflix, you've got pro sports, you've got, you're tired, you've got your phone, you've got all these other things you want to do. You got to get ready for the next day. And so this idea of being a night owl, there's very few people that can actually pull it off. And it actually takes much more discipline to be a night owl than it does to actually get up a little bit early and work on the main thing. And then I think that's the last place that we get the pushback on is we want people to get to bed on time, which is very difficult for most people because of the temptations I listed earlier. But it is one of the most important keystone, cornerstone habits in successful people. When somebody has a good week, I ask them about their bedtime routine. They get to bed on time and they get up on time this week. And almost always they say yes. When it's been a chaotic week and they feel behind and they feel overwhelmed and chasing their tails, I'm like, did you get to bed late? Were you not sleeping well? And they're like, oh, I had a late dinner, or I had an event and I was out and I stayed late at it. And then the next day I didn't get up on time. And then that's just negative domino that knocks down negative domino. So making sure to have the systems in place to get to bed on time when you can control that as much as you can. It's such a boring habit to say, like, hey, listen, you'll be more successful in life if you just get to bed on time. People want something fancy, or they want a cold plunge full of green juice or something, but it's not that. It's get to bed on time, so you get up on time, so you get to work on time, so you have good energy, so that you're not tired. And that's how you win, when you show up and doing that every single day for 5 or 10 years.
Speak to your bedtime routine and getting to bed on time. You're married, three young kids. I mean, I think a lot of people listening can relate. And say, well, wait a minute, Craig, like I just can't get the kids in bed on time, or
Yeah.
my wife doesn't want to go to bed at that time, or right. I'm sure you've heard all those things. How do you do it?
Yeah, so I didn't get married until late, and everybody knew a lot of my readers and friends. They knew that I went to bed early, and they were like, "Listen, when you get married, your wife's not going to want to go to bed at the same time." Well, sure enough, I found, I guess, the only woman in the world who likes to go to bed, before 8 o'clock. So it's all again, if you think of the metaphor of the domino, it's all about you got to reverse engineer and get those dominoes to fall. And so for us, my wife and I eat dinner very early, so we eat dinner together at 4 o'clock. We have our three kids, but we're fortunate to be in the position where we have nannies with our kids until 5 o'clock. So my wife and I will have a date dinner at the kitchen table. The kids are screaming beside us, but we're having dinner. We're talking about the day. We're talking about tomorrow, and then we take over from the nannies with the kids at 5, and that's when we feed the kids. And then we make sure we watch a little bit of YouTube. We watch a little bit of some of these song and dance things. Very very wholesome stuff. And Daniel Tiger is a nice little cartoon. And so we watch that for about 30 minutes, and then at 6 o'clock, that's the last one. And then from 6 until 6:30, believe it or not, it takes this long to get them to brush their teeth and go potty, and get in their pajamas. And then the nannies usually give them a bath. But notice, it's like these times, it's all routine. We see the clock. Okay, doesn't matter if it's the middle of the show, the TV's off. And then it's from 6:30 till 7. We go upstairs, and we takes that long to get from upstairs into our room, and all the kids want to play in our big bed for a couple minutes. And my wife is starting
That's important
to
time, right?
yeah. I mean, that's my favorite time. It's
Yeah,
that teeth brushing and potty,
that's
because
right.
like
Hey, you figure that out. I want to know.
the one of them wants to simultaneously pee, eat a fruit bar, and brush their teeth on the potty. I'm like, this is not how this works. And then the other one is running around with a toothbrush in their mouth, no pants on. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the most dangerous part of the day. And once we get through that, it's like, oh my gosh, the teeth are brushed, the pajamas are on, diapers on the ones that need it. Sometimes you forget to put the diapers on the ones that need it, but you get that, and like now I'm like, okay, I can kind of breathe. But then from 6:30 to 7, we're up in the big bed with everybody. And then my wife takes our 1-year-old son and puts him to bed. I take the two girls into their room, and I try and keep them, from hurting each other and that sort of stuff, and from hurting themselves. And then my wife comes and helps me put to bed, because right now our 2-year-old is going through this like sleep anxiety thing, and I gotta like lie there in dark and try and keep her. If I leave too early, she starts to scream, and she's really got these vocal cords. So it's a challenging time right now. And I was mentioning to you, Whitney, that two of them right now are sick. So middle of the night, puking and stuff, and it's like day 3 or 4 of this, and we're in the muck, I guess you would say. But it's all routine, so that my wife and I, somewhere between 7:45 and quarter after 8, it's lights out in our room. We chat a little bit. We chat a lot during the day. We spend a lot of time together, so we don't necessarily, like maybe most marriages, need to have that 30 minutes in bedtime talk or whatever. We've talked a lot over the course of the day, and we both kind of pass out, and then the next thing you know, it's morning and I'm up and at 'em. And but it is for everybody. It's knowing the times, and you reverse engineer it. So if you want to get to bed at 11 o'clock at night, at 10 o'clock at night, you need to have what we call the reverse alarm. And that's the alarm goes off in your phone. It's the most important alarm of the day, not the alarm in the morning, it's the alarm at night. And that signifies you turn off all your electronics, all the laptops, all the phones, all the iPad thingies. And it's just old school. All right. You can read, you can go have a shower, you can take a bath, you can make your lunch tomorrow, you can talk to your wife, you can talk to your kids, you can read the Bible, you can read another book. I don't care. But you can't do anything. Somebody once called this Amish hour, and hey, I
That's
respect the
funny.
Amish, but it is like you can only do old school activities, and you'll find that if you don't have all these distractions, you'll get to bed on time. And again, people might roll their eyes at it, but if you just get to bed on time, your life will be so much better in so many ways. So that's how we do it, and we're very fortunate that our days are generally the same. I don't have to drive home in traffic and get home late. Most of my, it's not like 20 years ago when I was working till 7 o'clock at night. When I was single and would I would not say no to enough. And so we just have these boundaries in place, and boundaries are very important. Boundaries are very, very important for every area of your life. It's like drawing that line, Even if somebody is listening to this and, man, I wish this guy liked football. Well, I do like football, but people listen to this and watch some football. Well, you probably have a boundary of how much football you watch on Sunday, because you could watch football from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on a Sunday, but you don't, because you have a boundary of around how much time you can actually put towards it. And you need to have a boundary and cutoff times around bedtime, the reverse alarm, when you shut the TV off, when you're finished dinner, when you leave work, so that each one of these dominoes can be knocked down in an effective order. And with kids, they crave this routine and structure. They do fight it, of course, but they will, our kids, when they're not sick, will sleep 10 and a half hours on all three of them. And, there's a good chunk of time when there's peace and quiet in our house, even though we have the three kids under three. And so it's right for them. Kids
That's right.
need that to
They
feel
do need
safe and
it.
secure.
They do. I've seen, I just know of a lot of different families with kids, of course, and you can see it in the kids. I feel like you can see it. The ones that have structure, the ones that do not, they do need structure, and so do I. I need it as
Yeah.
well.
and,
Um,
and they need their sleep, right?
that's
Because
right.
if you have a kid who sleeps 9 hours, and we do a little bit of travel, and so sometimes we've gotten home late, and the kid is not the same kid
That's right.
if they don't get double digit sleep.
And neither am I. Like if I don't get a certain amount potentially, right?
Yeah,
You've got kids up in the middle of the night right now, Craig. Are you still up in the morning at the same time?
I am, because it is something that I have done going on. I would say I started consistently with it in 2009. So anybody here who's been in the army knows that you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning in the army for 15 years. 5 years after you're out of the army, you're still up at 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's how your body is regulated. So I'm regulated that way. I don't say this in a positive way, but I can do okay with a little less sleep. I'm very tired around 7 o'clock at night, but during the daytime, I don't think I'd be much different if I did get 8 hours of sleep last night. But that said, and everybody hold me to this, my goal next year, well, starting now, I'm getting back serious about my sleep, getting the Aura ring. I have made a bunch of changes. Like I really believe that you should not eat too close to bedtime. So that's why we have our dinner at 4 o'clock, so that I can go from 4:30 to 7:30 with no food, so that I'm not going to sleep on a full stomach like I used to even 3 years ago, and that would ruin my sleep. So I got to be very tight about my sleep. But one of my big goals for next year is to get 52 hours of sleep per week, which is just over 7 hours on average, which would be an improvement. And I want to make sure I get it. So that's an area of life that I'm looking to level up on.
One thing that's helped us save some time as a family is we have breakfast at 8:30 as a family,
Oh, nice.
and so it allows me to be in there most mornings, not all mornings, but and even if it's short before another meeting or something, allows me to be in there with them. But then we have a dinner at like 2:30, 3 o'clock,
Oh,
and
wow.
so where you have that meal together, and then so because my wife cooks every meal from scratch, and
Wow.
so it allows us to have two meals where there's cooking and then cleanup, right? Cleanup with a
Got it.
number of kids. Obviously, it's a big ordeal,
Yeah.
but it eliminates a whole meal in that space, right? That's all the time cleaning up, all the time
Right.
cooking. The kids will have like kind of like we call it a snack, but it's a meal
Yeah.
for them. But where then my wife and I don't eat another meal until breakfast the next morning.
Oh, okay.
And so anyway, that's one quick way that's helped us to save a lot of
Man,
time.
I always thought, man, when I tell people I eat at 4 o'clock, they're gonna, people think I'm crazy. This is awesome. I met somebody who's got an even better system.
What about, I know you've built just multiple seven-figure businesses. What about any systems we haven't talked about that, have made the biggest difference in your ability to, say, grow without being burnt out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Most of my businesses were built on putting out content and information because, my first business was in the fitness industry. So, I liked working out when I was younger and then just figured out, oh, wow, I can make a living out of this. And I got lucky. I started writing for Men's Health when I was about 25. And then the internet kind of came along and, people would buy workouts from me. So I built systems for creating content. And there's something that really helped me when I was younger was this self-reflection to find something called magic time. So, Cal Newport has this phrase, deep work. Magic time is kind of same, but different in that I believe there's a time of day that everybody has. It's individual. There's a time of day when you're three times more creative, productive, and energetic. And, there might be the night owls on here going, oh, yeah, 9 o'clock at night. And there might be the early birds like me going, yes, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Some people might say, oh, yeah, right around 11 o'clock in the morning, man. I just, let me be focused. I'm in my flow. That's another phrase that people use for it. And the system is to put your hardest work inside your flow time, your magic time, your deep work time with no distractions and not giving that time away to meetings or email or running errands or even going to the gym, which is a good thing, but not when it steals that time. And so then that allows you to increase your output. It's kind of like the toys that kids have where it's like take square peg, put in square hole. It's almost comical, and you see people walking around in life, they're not as successful as they want because they're taking round peg and trying to put it in square hole as a metaphor for this in terms of productivity, but also in terms of the relationships they choose and the career opportunities they choose. It's like this is just not a good fit. But they spend their entire lives trying to take square peg and put it in a round hole. It ain't gonna work. It doesn't matter how hard you jam it in there, it ain't gonna work. So with the productivity and time management is take that high intensity mental activity and do it when you have your greatest mental intensity and focus. And this is a simple shift. And most people hopefully are like, yeah, that makes sense. And I do that. But they might only do it most of the time because there's so much temptation to like take another call or do another meeting or maybe I'll just go check my email or maybe I'll use social media. No, no, you got to protect that. Like we got a yellow Labrador Retriever, and you got to protect your time, your magic time. Like my dog protects her dog bowl when she's eating, right?
Oh,
Like that's how
yeah.
ruthless you need to be with it. And when you make that shift, all of a sudden you're going to crank out more stuff. Whether you're looking at, whether you're a lawyer looking at contracts or whether you're a person like me who's putting out content. And then what helped me is I built a little formula for the content that goes out. So we did a lot of email newsletters. And so the email newsletter formula, the system is doesn't matter how good the email is going to be. If you don't get the subject line right, nobody's going to open the email. So that's the most important domino to knock down. So we spent a lot of time figuring out how do we make it curiosity and a good match with the content inside. You get the headline right, that does most of the work. So then, the next little part of the system was, started off with an intention getter and get their imagination involved and some personality, then teach them something, then show it how what you taught them worked for another person, so some social proof, and then you have given value and you have earned the right to make a call to action. So then here's a bunch of ways you can make a call to action at the end of the email. And by having that little system, I could write an email to my fitness list in about 15 minutes that would generate revenue. And so, a lot of people say, oh man, I don't know what to write in these emails. And so it takes me 2 or 3 hours. Well, I've got it down to a system of 15 minutes. And that was before AI and all these tools that can accelerate your progress even more. So just stuff like that. And it goes with videos that we make, it goes with Facebook ads that we make, it goes with the products that we created. You get a template down so that you're not reinventing the wheel every time you're doing something. So, I worked in factories when I was in college to pay for college. And what does a factory do? A factory is the same thing done over and over again. I worked in a ball bearing factory, so we would make ball bearings for like Volvo and aerospace and stuff. And you would have different orders come in, and you would do all the order at once. It might be a 3-day job, but you're not going to do like part of this order and then go and do part of another order where you have to move the machine around and change the numbers. No, you do all of the order so that you don't have to change the machine all the time. And so you want to think in terms of your work as creating a factory. And this can be done if you're a lawyer, this can be done if you're a real estate agent, it can be done for all types of things, so that you're increasing the batch production through the rearrangement of your schedule. So that you're not dying, and this is a phrase that people resonate with, is that your time management is not dying a death of 1,000 cuts. And that's what happens when you're ping ponging around to a different thing all day.
Are you and your wife up at the same time in the morning?
No, she sleeps about 3 hours longer than me.
Okay.
Well, no, not three. Before kids, yes, 3 hours longer. Now she sleeps about an hour and a half or 2 hours longer.
Because I think your
She
best
gets up
time is that
when the first one gets up.
your best time is that first time in the morning, right?
Oh
If
gosh,
I
I,
remember
I
that
can
right.
I can do an 8 hour workday done between 4 and 6 a.m.
How do you, I mean, I guess everyone knows. I mean, obviously it's so early too. That's so helpful. I was going to say, so your team, your wife, everybody knows, like, let's not bother Craig during that time. He's
Well, it's
he's
so
in his
early,
in
nobody's
his
bothering
moment.
me that
Right,
time.
right.
Here's one thing that I always tell people is that, because it's very tempting to get into reactive mode. And for many years, I owned gyms, and I had a business partner, and we owned gyms in Charleston, South Carolina. And sure enough, every year, once a year, the air conditioning would go out in the summertime. Now that's a big problem, right? In Charleston, South Carolina. Now we would give somebody else that responsibility, but most cases, the stuff in your business are not something so pressing where you have to have the air conditioning back on. It's that somebody sent you a message last night at 9 o'clock. You had already logged off your devices. And so you went to bed at 11 o'clock. You get up at 7. You get into your work by 8 or 9. That message has been sitting there for 12 hours. You have to like mentally be okay with letting it sit there for another 2 hours. Because unless you are running an emergency room, which most people aren't, that message can sit there for another 2 hours. But it is our human nature to see the thing and go and do it. But you can't let it happen. And so again, there's a lot of tools. You can even set up your Gmail so that emails don't go into your inbox until a certain time. And there's all ways and systems for protecting your inbox so that you don't see all these messages. You can use something called the Opal app, OPAL, to block yourself from going on social media in certain hours. So again, you protect your time. There's all these types of things so that it doesn't matter if everybody is up. You can still protect your time from everybody else.
Craig, when you think about legacy, what do you hope people closest to you say about you, your life, maybe your leadership 20 years from now?
Well, people always say, oh, write think of your eulogy. I don't care about, all I want people to do is listen to the Saints go marching in and tell great stories and laugh and hug each other and get back to work. Except for my family. And my family is just, I just want my kids to think, Dad provided us a great opportunity. He provided us an environment in which we can flourish. He provided us great experiences, and he showed us how to live right in this world. And that's all that really matters to me. I'm very, very happy that I wrote my books, The Perfect Day Formula, because I'm a bookworm. When I was a kid, I was a bookworm. And so when I was younger, I thought if I ever write a book, that'd be amazing. And so I really do have the lessons that I want to share with people in my books, and they're available. And I would also say, so I just want people to read it and put it to use. And I don't care if they thank me or anything. All I really wanted to do is help solve people's problems. So I think my books will act as the legacy in terms of you know my impact on the world. And all that matters is that my family thought I did the right things for them.
If you could challenge, the men listening with one action they could take this week to become more disciplined, what would it be?
I'd say it's the elimination, right? Because you can do 100 things right, but if you do one thing wrong, like Warren Buffett has that old phrase that it takes like 5 minutes, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. I don't watch the news, but I'm sure most people remember the guy who got caught at the Coldplay concert. Like, when I go on Instagram, I can't avoid the news. So, the guy is at the Coldplay concert, the CEO, he's there and he's there with some woman who's not his wife. Like, you work so hard to get to that, and then you throw it all away for something so silly. And I'm not saying any man listening to this is doing that, but what I am saying is you worked very hard to get where you are, and I don't want you throwing it away to getting drunk on the weekend or too much football. Good amount of football is fine, but too much football, or binge eating food or binge watching Netflix or pornography or whatever it is. Like, everybody knows that what they've got is their level 10 problem. And I don't want you to let that temptation or vice get to you. So what you need to do is, it's really a simple little system to get rid of all these bad habits. It's the EPC, elimination. First, look to eliminate. I used to be a binge drinker, so like I'm not like your priest or pastor who's perfect. I'm a sinner, and so I was once a binge drinker for way too long. And when I decided to stop binge drinking, I eliminated myself from toxic environments. I eliminated myself from toxic people, and I eliminated toxic alcohol from my house. And those three things, I mean, they moved, that was like 80-20 for sure. They did most of the heavy lifting. So look at what is dragging you down into bad behavior and eliminate that. Whether it is putting the Opal app on your phone, or whether it is, not buying 6 beers for the weekend, it's 6 beers, but you end up eating poorly and sleeping poorly, just eliminate it. And then preparation. So when you eliminate a bad habit, if you don't fill that void with something good, then you will default to the bad habit. So you need to plan and prepare. Well, if I'm not going to have, 6 beers sitting around the house, and for when my brother-in-law comes over on Sunday afternoon to watch the Bills game, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I better have those 6 beers or something, right? Or he'll bring them over or something. No, he's get 6 Heineken Zero. They taste the exact same. They're totally fine. And or some other drink or something that's non-alcoholic. So you just have to put it in place, or just don't watch the game and say, let's go play, let's go run, or let's go to the gym, or let's go play pickleball or something, instead of watching the Bills game and just sitting around. So you have to plan, prepare something else in place. And then finally, the last one is connection, which is another word for accountability. So you need to find somebody that you deeply do not want to disappoint, and say to them, I'm not going to do this anymore. So you might be your pastor, it might be your best friend, it might be your father, it might be your brother, it might be your wife, it might be somebody else. And you just say, hey, listen, I don't like having 3 beers on Sunday afternoon and feeling dopey the rest of the day. I'm not going to do it, and I want you to hold me to it. Great. Awesome. And away you go. And so it's EPC, eliminate the temptations and the triggers, prepare to replace it with something good, and then connection, get accountability to somebody, so that you deeply do not want to disappoint, so that when you go back to them on Monday and they say, hey, did you drink 3 beers watching the Bills on Sunday? And you can say, no, I didn't, because you sure as heck don't want to go, yeah, I did.
Yeah, love that, Craig. Man, it's so actionable too for anybody listening. You've given us so many steps, so many things to think about. I just hope the men listening will just implement one thing Craig's talked about this week, and move forward with it. And I love the accountability piece as well. I've strived to find that, and whether it's through mentorship or whether it's friends that I've said, hey, I want you to hold me accountable. I feel like sometimes you have to like open that door for them to like speak into you, right, and give them permission.
Mhm.
And I've felt like that's helped me in different ways. But
One thing that I've done, Whitney, is I just co-opted all the people that, either listen to my podcast or my email. So when I want to change something, even if it's embarrassing, I will tell everybody. So I quit swearing in 2011, and I quit swearing in 4 days because I told my email list, and it was all fitness people. And they're like, what? I don't care if you swear. But I said, I'm not going to swear. I don't like swearing. I don't swear around my mother. I don't swear when I'm speaking on stage. I don't need to swear. I can clearly control myself. So I just said, I'm not swearing. And over 4 days, I was able to kick the habit. Unless I see a giant bug, if I see a giant bug in a bathroom, I'm sorry, but other than that, and so, and I did it because I didn't want to be out with people and swear, and then them go, "Hey, you said you didn't do that. You're a bit of a hypocrite. Now we can't trust you in anything." And that's really how the dominoes fall. So, when you tell people this is the way I'm going to act, or this is what I'm going to do, if you have any integrity, you're going to fall through on it.
Craig, so grateful to know you, to have you on the show. Learned so much from you. I know the men listening have as well. How can they get in touch with you? How can they learn more about you, coaching, your books, Perfect Day Formula, Perfect Week Formula? How can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of places. So one, Instagram, I'm at real Craig Ballantyne. I'm also on LinkedIn, Craig Ballantyne. And then the books, I want everybody to read my books. So I wrote them to be read. And so I give away the digital copies and the audio copies for free at craigballantyne.com/free books. If you're more of a physical book person like me, then Amazon's your best bet to get them all.